good day everyone. I'm Kristine Narisma and I'm going to share my reflection about the life of our national hero, Jose Rizal. So Jose Rizal had his primary and secondary schooling at Calamba and Binyan. It was standard education for a son of an ilustrado household during his period, including the literacy, writing, arithmetic, and religion. The instruction was rigorous and rigid. The laborious memory method helped by the teacher's wit was used to force knowledge into the minds of the students. Considering the Spanish basic school system, Rizal was able to obtain the requisite training for college studies in Manila and overseas. And although Rizal was claimed to have been born a physically wimp, he climbed to become an intellectual giant despite the Philippines' obsolete and primitive educational system that existed during the last decade of the Spanish government. I began my early schooling in Calapagan where I was born and reared by my mother because I do not come from the ilustrado family like Jose Rizal. My parents were able to enroll me in a public primary school instead. My early education is one of my most remembered school days because I can truly say that I enjoyed my youth when we, the students, were allowed to play. Not like traditional schooling during the period of Jose Rizal, where pupils were whipped in order to learn. Teachers do not compel children to play during my school days. I can honestly state that learning is a lot of fun and pleasurable throughout my primary school days. The lecturers are quite nice, so we have the guts to attend class even if it begins at 7 a.m. Jose Rizal instructor was his mother, a magnificent woman of strong character and fine culture. Jose Rizal learned the alphabet and prayers on her lap when he was 3 years old. Doña Teodora was compassionate, patient, and diligent. She was the one who found her son's gift for poetry. She encourages Jose Rizal to create poems, and she tells him many stories to break up the monotony of learning the ABCs and to develop his creativity. As Jose Rizal grew older, his parents hired private tutors to teach him at home. Jose Rizal had 3 professors. The first being is Maestro Celestino, the second Lucas Padua, and the third an elderly man named Leon Monroy. Ironically, 5 months later, Maestro Leon Monroy died, and Jose Rizal's parents chose to send their brilliant son to a private school in Binyan. My mother, like Jose Rizal, was my first instructor. Unlike me, my mom excels at mathematics, and she is the one who initially taught me how to count numbers. My mother, like Jose Rizal, is patient. Even though I didn't have my stepfather at that time, my mother was a full-time mother to me. I began reading and writing at the age of 6, but then at the age of 4, my mother began sending me to a daycare school. So picture how patient my mother is for me to learn everything. Jose Rizal left for Calamba to Jose Rizal left Calamba for Binyan to attend school. Pasiano, his brother, who functioned as his second father, followed him. They went to their aunt's house where Jose Rizal was supposed to stay. Jose Rizal became unhappy as a result of homesickness. He recalls his adoring mother and his watchful sisters. He misses his hometown of Calamba, even if it is not as prosperous as Binyan. My primary school is really close to our house. We can already go to school after about 15 minutes of walking. My parents reside in the province. We don't have a house. Nevertheless, my auntie who lives in Hawaii allows us to stay in her home while she is not in the Philippines. Pasiano took his younger brother to Maestro Josiano Aquino Cruz's school on his first day in Binyan. The school was at the teacher's house, which was a little nipa hut about 30 meters from Jose Rizal's aunt's house. Pasiano knew the teacher well since he had previously been a student of him. He presented Jose to the teacher before departing for Calamba. The first day of school was a lot of fun. I can honestly say that I like going to school every day. My primary school was about a 15-minute walk away. My instructor is fantastic. Mrs. Stai, I will never forget her generosity, goodness, and understanding toward us, her students. She dislikes being rushed, so she teaches us gently and never forces us to read or write when we don't want to. Mrs. Elizabeth Stai and my mother were friends since she was the godmother in her wedding. Jose outperformed all the Binyan boys in academics. He outperformed everyone in Spanish, Latin, and other disciplines. Some of his older classmates were envious of his intelligence. They screamed at the instructor anytime Jose got into a fight outside the school, and even fabricated falsehoods in front of the teacher to discredit him. As a result, the instructor was forced to chastise Jose. Even if he was a wonderful lad, the day would not be complete till he took 5 or 6 hits from his envious peers. Unlike Jose Rizal, I was not the sharpest student in primary school. Rather, I was in the second. When we got new lessons, my teacher used to compliment me on how rapidly I learned. Even if other students were jealous of me, they did not beat or fight over me because they were frightened of me. I didn't have many friends previously, but we used to play during breaks, recess, and after class. As a result, I can say that my early school days were a lot of fun, and I still remember them fondly. Jose Rizal got a letter from his sister Saturnina notifying him that the ship Talim, which would transport him from Binyan to Calamba, had arrived. He became, after reading the letter and having a sense that he would not return to Binyan. He worshipped in the town church, collected river stones as keepsakes, and said his final goodbyes to his instructor and classmates. My last primary school memories are from when I graduated from grade 6. I was both thrilled and sad since several of my friends had transferred to another school. We said our goodbyes and haven't reached out to one another since I forgot their names and they may have forgotten mine as well. Jose Rizal was traveling to Manila with his brother Pasiano. He passed the entrance test for the College of San Juan de Letran in Christian philosophy, math, and reading. He returned to Calamba to spend time with his family and to participate in the local festivities. His father, who had originally planned to send him to Letran, changed his mind and sent him to Ateneo instead. Father Magin or Magin Fernando, a college registrar, first refused to accept him, but with the help of Manuel Ceres Burgos, Father Burgos' nephew, he was unwillingly allowed to the Ateneo. After graduating from elementary school, I was the only one who went to school since it was not far from our house, and because elementary school is not far from secondary or high school. We don't have an admission exam or but the teachers do test us to see whether we already know how to read. Going to high school was not tough because we just studied in the province. The Jesuit education system at the Ateneo was more sophisticated than that of other colleges at the time. It shaped the students' character via rigidity, discipline, and religious education. It encouraged physical nature, humanities, and scientific research. Aside from academic courses leading to a Bachelor of Arts degree, it also provided vocational courses in agriculture, commerce, mechanics, and surveying. Students were separated into two groups: the Roman Empire, which had internal borders, and Carthaginian Empire, which had external borders or non-borders. Rizal's Ateneo students donned a uniform consisting of hemp fabric pants and a striped cotton coat. Rayadalo was the name of the coat material. Rizal's school is for ilustrado and wealthy families. Because we do not belong to this social class, my family can only afford to send our children to lower cost school. So I registered in a public secondary school, high school, so that my parents could save money for my college education when I graduated from high school. My school, like any other secondary school, is not as pricey as Jose Rizal, but it is stringent when it comes to teaching and training. When it comes to competing with other schools, our school is competitive. Calapagan National High School is the mother school of our community, and it is the home of the accomplished people who belong to the school. On his first day at Ateneo, Jose Rizal attended a mass in the campus chapel and prayed earnestly to God for direction and prosperity. He returned to his class after the mass when he noticed a large number of lads. Spaniards, mestizos, and Filipinos. His Father Beck was Rizal's first lecturer at the Ateneo. Jose Rizal was put at the bottom of the class since he was a newcomer and knew little Spanish. He was an external, thus he was assigned to the Carthaginians, who occupied the tail end of the line. Jose Rizal advanced quickly after the first week. He was crowned emperor at the conclusion of the month. He received a trophy for being the smartest student in the class. He was overjoyed since it was his first year at Ateneo to maintain his academic superiority that he had established in the first half of the term. This is because he was offended by some of his professors' statements. He finished second at the conclusion of the school year, despite having all of his grades marked excellent. I was frightened and bashful on my first day at Calapagan National High School since I didn't make many friends at the time and was concerned that I wouldn't be able to make any. But later on, I gained some friends who, even if I friended them, would abuse me or gossip behind my back because of my physical concerns. I've been experiencing self-doubt, humiliation, insecurity, and most importantly, a lack of confidence. Like Jose Rizal, I was one of the top students in my class during my first year. I'm not sure where I stand in the honors list anymore. I am really fortunate at that time because even if I'm not in the first position, I'm content since it is worth it for my academic achievements and I got it because I stuck with it despite my quiet issues. Jose Rizal returned to Calamba for summer vacation at the end of the academic year. Because his mother was in prison, he did not enjoy his vacation. His sister Neneng or Saturnina invited him to Tanawan to cheer him up. This did not alleviate his depression. He traveled to Santa Cruz and visited his mother in prison without notifying his father. He posted about his stellar academic performance at the Ateneo. She enthusiastically welcomed her favorite son. Rizal returned to Manila for his second term at Ateneo after his summer break ended. Like Jose Rizal, at the conclusion of the school year, my family and I spent our brief vacation in town, picnicking and swimming at the beach, even though it was just one day. We had a good time together. I also shared my accomplishments with them at that time, and they were pleased of me for doing my best in school. Rizal first became interested in love literature during his summer vacation in Calamba in 1874. He grew interested in love stories and romantic tales as a typical adolescent. The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas was Rizal's first novel. His boyhood imagination was sparked by Edmond Dante, the hero's miseries in jail. His spectacular escape from the dungeon of Chateau de Faux, his discovery of a treasure in the rocky island of Monte Cristo, and his dramatic retribution on his foes who had mistreated him. Rizal was a voracious reader of other romance literature. His reading habit contributed to the development of his fertile intellect. He was a voracious reader who read not just fiction, but also non-fiction in real life. I didn't like reading love books in high school because my classmate and I were still playing games at the time. But when I was in 9th or 10th grade, my closest buddy persuaded me to watch K-dramas. Maybe not as much as a Rizal, but I was attracted by the dramas. But I stopped watching them because I was focused on my academics and was scared that it would interfere with my schoolwork. Jose Rizal returned to Manila for his fourth year of study after a relaxing and enjoyable summer break. He was appointed interno at the Ateneo. Father was one of his professors. Francisco de Paula Sanchez was an outstanding educator and scholar. He motivated young Rizal to work harder in school and to create poems. He grew to appreciate and befriend the slim Calamba youngster whose God-given ability he recognized. He held Father Sanchez in the highest regard. Father Sanchez, whom he regarded as his finest Ateneo professor. Rizal was influenced by Father Sanchez, returned to his studies by returned to his studies with zeal. He outperformed all of his classmates in all areas and received 2 medals from his parents for being able to return his father's modest sacrifices. Like Jose Rizal, I was motivated by one of my academic teachers while I was in my 4th year of high school. She was excellent and my other classmate was inspired to study as a result of of the manner in which she treated her students. We constantly perform fun things in her class and we never get bored, and she always gives us wonderful ratings. My life is a roller coaster. My family's position occasionally goes up and down. His parents, like Rizal, inspired and supported him throughout his schooling. As for me, even though we struggled at times in life, my parents never gave up on supporting what we needed. It's difficult to observe life without our parents since we don't have mama or papa to gather or soothe us when we're down. That is why I'm so grateful that to have a mom that supports me through my ups and downs. Living a simple life entails because you recognize that having more doesn't always translate into happiness. It's about finding greater delight in the little things in life and being content with solitude, silence, introspection, and relishing the present. Rizal's education philosophy is centered on the provision of sufficient motivation in order to develop the major social forces that make education a success. To instill in the youth an intrinsic desire to cultivate his mind and offer him eternal life. This ideology taught me the importance of education as a stepping stone to prosperity for myself and my nation. Because there is sufficient drive to learn and investigate through wisdom. This served as a reminder to me that education should not to be limited to the confines of schools, but should extend to every part of the globe. Rizal's view that awakening every Filipino youth's intrinsic desire to improve his mind is such a wonderful thing that every individual should consider. His educational accomplishment reinforce his ideology, providing strong support for his educational philosophy and allowing him the legitimacy to talk about such a road to educational success. About his travels, frustrations, and disappointments, dissatisfied with how Filipinos in the Philippines were treated as second-class citizens at educational institutions and elsewhere, national hero Jose Rizal left the country in May 1882 to further his educational overseas. He enrolled in a medical program at the Universidad Central de Madrid in Spain. He flew to France in June 1883 to examine how medicine was performed there. After his 3-month stay in France, Rizal returned to Madrid and considered writing a book about Spain's colonial ties with the Philippines. This concept was achieved in March 1887 with the publication of the book Noli Me Tangere in Germany. Rizal was an active member of the propaganda movement, which was made of Filipinos in Spain who attempted to focus Spaniards' attention to the difficulties of the Spanish colony in the Philippines. He produced articles for periodicals in Manila and abroad, spoke with foreign Filipinos to discuss their responsibilities to the nation, and urged Spanish authorities to implement changes in the Philippines, such as press freedom and Filipino representation in the Spanish Cortes or courts. I don't know what will I pronounce it. I don't know what to pronounce it. After 5 years in Europe, Rizal returned to Manila in August 1887. However, his return was marred by the friars' outrage over Noli Me Tangere. The Archbishop of Manila issued an order prohibiting the position and reading of the work, which the Governor General later enforced. 6 months later, under pressure from Spanish officials as well as family and friends to leave the country and avoid further persecution, Rizal flew from Manila to Hong Kong. Rizal went from Hong Kong through Macau and Japan before arriving in America. In April 1888, he arrived in San Francisco, California, and traveled via Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, Illinois, and New York. In his journal, he recorded his views of the scenery. In May 1888, Rizal landed in England. He was permitted to the British Museum in August and copied Antonio de Morga's vast study of the Philippines, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, which Rizal subsequently annotated for publication as a present to the Filipinos. He spent his time in the museum reading whatever he could find about Philippine history. He maintained contact with a variety of individuals, including his family, who were being harassed by Spanish religious landlords, Filipino nationalists in Spain, and his Austrian friend Ferdinand Blumentritt, with whom he planned to organize a Philippine academics organization. During 1888 until 1890, he commuted between London and Paris, where he published anthropological and historical research, as well as political writings. He also traveled to Spain regularly, where he met fellow Filipino intellectuals such as Marcelo H. Cristiano Lopez Haina, Mariano Ponce, and Del Pilar. Rizal finished his second work of filibusterismo in France in March 1891. He intended to publish the book in Belgium, but he was short on funds. His brother's help from back home was delayed, and he was cutting back on meals and bills. Finally, El Filibusterismo was published in Kent in September 1890, thanks to gifts from Rizal's supporters. Simultaneously, Rizal and Del Pilar were feuding over the leadership of the Asociación Hispano-Filipino in Spain. Rizal made the decision to depart Europe in order to escape the growing schism between the Rizalistas and the Pilaristas, and thus maintain unity among Filipino expats. Rizal returned to the Philippines in June 1882 after spending some time in Hong Kong, where he practiced medicine, and intended to create some time in Hong Kong, where he practiced medicine and intended to create New Calamba by moving landless Filipinos to Borneo. Rizal's fundamental political thought was the study and execution of reforms, the development of civil rights, the training for self-government, and the awakening of a spirit of dissatisfaction against injustice, aggression, dehumanization, sensitiveness, and self-love. Rizal fought for the sovereignty of his homeland and his fellow citizens. In response to his cries, he instituted changes, pleaded via his writings and bravely forced his disagreement to the Spaniards' harsh and cruel rule over the Filipinos. Something I learned from his history is that he was not afraid of the Spaniards' tremendous authority, but rather allowed himself emerge and stand out on the situation that he and his nation were faced. This might be a great desire and commitment to liberate a nation deserving of independence. In my studies, I also saw that Rizal never desired politically authority but rather functioned as a catalyst who quietly works wonders in his own manner. He has battled for freedom to the end of his life, and he has fought a good fight even if it has cost him from his existence. Rizal, in my opinion, is a highly humanistic, caring, and benign guy. He has addressed societal issues in his popular writings No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo. He is an advocate rather for social justice and equality, which is something we should also strive towards. If only thousands more people were like Rizal, I feel our society would be in good shape. I always wish I could be like him in some aspect of his life, but I know that is unlikely to happen. What I'm doing is trying my best, making every attempt to become useful individual in all facets of life. Challenges are not grounds to quit up, but rather motivation to keep going. I believe this aphorism was on Dr. Giuseppe Rizal's thoughts while he was in the Pitan. He never stopped fighting for our nation, even when the Spanish tried to ruin his life by threatening him. On July 17, 1892, his exile began in the Pitan, where he was tortured, tormented, and threatened with death by Spaniards. This exile also increased his nationalism and affection for his family, the people of the Pitan, and the place where he found pleasure. He was an example to the youngsters of the Pitan since he built a theme school. In addition, he taught his student arnis, wrestling, boxing, and swimming for free. Rizal also provided free medical care and medications to the unprivileged, which was a very honest effort. In the Pitan, he also operated on his mother's right eye. When he was in the Pitan, I admired his community projects, which included a water system and a lighting system that made people's lives simpler. He also became a farmer, merchant, scientist, and inventor in the Pitan, where he rose to prominence, and Rizal demonstrated his martial arts prowess. He met Josephine Bracken in the Pitan, who subsequently became his wife. Father Antonio Olbach condemned the two's friendship, describing Rizal as lowly. That incident intensified his feelings for Josephine, for was later pregnant but miscarried. Dr. Pio Valenzuela traveled to the Pitan to inform Rizal about the Katipunan's plans, which he had objected to, and Rizal's exile ended on July 31, 1896. Rizal's life was undeniably vibrant and purposeful. Despite being incarcerated, he life because he was able to do things he enjoyed, such as educating youngsters and teaching males the art of arnis. Rizal, by the manner he presented himself to Josephine Bracken, is a gentleman. A word episode occurred in which a guy introduced himself as until his death, Rizal never lost sight of his vision and purpose for the Philippines. Rizal was more than just a propagandist. He is about humanitarian due to his volunteer medical services for the impoverished. And a sports person, he enjoys practicing and performing eskrima, which is now known as arnis. Rizal dresses well in order to appear attractive to visitors, particularly Europeans. Rizal leads a balanced life. He doesn't drink alcohol or wine, but he does save money for the lottery, which he won by accident. He adores the Philippines, but he is not blind to his personal life. He was in love or had a crush on several ladies, but none of them worked out. But we Filipinos are grateful for what he had done to ensure that we can enjoy the benefits of freedom and democracy. Rules are applicable everywhere, even in a desolate location. Some standards must be followed, such as natural laws. Man-made rules are not at all desirable. Not everything that is legal is moral. Not everything that is prescribed is beneficial. When the Spaniards imposed regulations in the Philippines, they tied the country's citizens around the neck and even on the head. People like Rizal rose out to straighten out what was unjust. Exile, justice, and death. From 1892 until 1896, Dr. Jose Rizal was exiled in Dapitan. This was his final 4 years. Dapitan was his jail cell. He constantly compared his confinement to a wonderful cage. This was Rizal's longest jail sentence. He felt so disoriented at those moments, yet he did not lose his mind. Even while there, he continued to research and learn new things. Outside the nation, he resumed his discourse with friends, scientists, and medics. His existence there was as simple guy could dream for a home on the beach with everything you need to provide. Rizal is different. He would not want to be in a position where he could not help his nation. Even while in exile, he managed to create a house with 16 pupils. Rizal met the fine lady in his life, Josephine Bracken in Dapitan. He wanted to marry her, but the church refused because Rizal refused to surrender his principles and all he had stated against the church. Rizal had a balanced life even while exiled. This is a call to Filipinos to be productive in the face of adversity and jail. A reminder to everyone that life does not end as long as you live for others rather than yourself. The trial of Rizal is the most renowned in Philippine history, not only because he is our national Philippine hero, but also because it is the reason he died. He did not die to defend himself or his family. Rather, he died to protect all of Filipinos. This Rizal trial is effectively a mistrial. It was a gigantic joke from the beginning, and describing it makes me want to puke since, as I already stated, he died to protect us. The savagery enrages me to the point where I equate those Spanish officials at the time to wild creatures possessed by evil. They were far too much for me, and words cannot express how I feel about them. Those Spaniards truly irritate me since they didn't murder Rizal. I believe he will go on to free our nation with his hands, and he will continue to create numerous poetry that will inspire us to this day, but Rizal died for naught. When Rizal was exiled in the Pitan in July 1892, despite his denial and urgent demand for an inquiry in accordance with due process of law, he was arrested and brought to Fort Santiago without the benefit of a trial, and the decree and accusation were kept hidden from him. When Rizal traveled to Barcelona, he was imprisoned in the castle jail upon arrival and re-embarked the next day for Manila. When Rizal arrived in Singapore, several of his friends attempted to rescue him for a habeas corpus, but they were unsuccessful. The Spaniards definitely wished to execute Rizal since they did not follow the right process of the law, and also because the petition of habeas corpus was refused when he was unjustly arrested on a ship from Singapore. When he arrived in Manila, he was promptly held in Fort Santiago and charged with treason, sedition, and creating unlawful societies. The prosecution said that via his works and novels, he insulted the Spaniards. Therefore, they determined that he should be tried in military court. Rizal was a civilian, yet he was prosecuted in military court with no civilian or religious intervention. It was evident that they really wanted Rizal to put him to death, and they kept it hidden, hidden so that some people would not debate over Rizal's trial, since they knew certain people would fight for Rizal. In continuing the trial, his case was assessed and he was found guilty before the jury. The military court's principal purpose was to accuse and sentence him to death, not to uncover the truth or to provide justice. All the evidence, arguments, and proofs in favor of Rizal are completely turned blind and deaf to appeals and pleas, because they had a clear motive from the start. They wanted him to die, and instead they accepted all charges and testimonies against him, and Rizal was not given the right to face witnesses against him in open court, which any accused is entitled to have in a real court of justice, and the only right given to Rizal was to choose his defenestration. The military court rejected Rizal's argument, in which he had demonstrated his innocence by 12 points written in his jail cell, and after a brief debate, Rizal was sentenced to death. Rizal was executed, and he became a noble martyr of Spanish injustice. Rizal is one of many Filipinos who demonstrate that mistrial was quite popular on those days, since the Spaniards colonized us, and they are the ones who have the authority to kill you if you disagree to them or with them. Like what happened to Rizal, he only revealed the truth of what is happening in our nation through his works. In my perspective, since Rizal died as a result of injustice, I can state that the issue is still in our system and hard to erase, since if you ask me, I believe it has already been embedded in our society. It is true that history repeats itself, and even if we're not free of colonization, we still feel colonized by our broken systems. And that would be all. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my sharing for my reflection on the life of Jose Rizal. And good day.